Well, Ukrainians generally do not trust Russia's promises. They are looking at Russia's actions, and actions speak for themselves because there were new missile attacks this night on Kyiv and also on other targets in western Ukraine. So while Russian officials and Russian, delegation at the negotiations in Turkey said that Russia will be focusing on Donbass, on eastern parts of the country, we do not see that based on their actions. We are seeing that they are continuing, their attempts to cut off cities in the northern Ukraine, such as Chernihiv, and they are continuing to strike with the missiles targets in Kyiv and in western part of the country.
I mean, you yourself this morning are talking to us from the basement because of the fears of shelling. So it seems as if the intensity is not easing at all.
Well, yes. In fact, the Ukrainian army was able to repel some of the Russian ground troops' offensive and even to push back and to liberate some smaller towns in Kyiv region, also in Sumy region in the northern part of the country. But Russia, while having troubles, with actually advancing on the ground, does not cease to bomb the cities and the civilian targets from the air using missiles, using aircraft, dropping bombs on peaceful residents. So with that, it's very difficult, for Ukraine to counter this sort of attacks because the capacities of Ukrainian air defense are limited. Ukraine does not have missile defense, and unfortunately, it has not yet received fighter jets or additional air defense system to repel these sorts of attacks.
Yeah. Olga, give us a sense of whether you feel what Russia is doing now is maybe more of a repositioning because they have faced such intense resistance from Ukraine forces.
Yes, definitely. It looks like, Russia is also this rhetoric of some sort of, that they will not be focusing on Kyiv or on other parts of the country is an attempt to distract the attention from that. In fact, they are preparing for a second phase of this war, having failed to achieve their initial objectives of capturing Kyiv and other major Ukrainian cities such as Kharkiv and other, Odessa in the south. So Russians are taking this kind of pause. They are trying to persuade those who are willing to trust them, well, and those are definitely other countries, not Ukraine, that they are acting in good faith, while preparing for a second phase of the attack and for a second attempt to, take more of strategic Ukrainian cities and more territory.
What did you make of some of the concessions that reportedly President Zelensky offered, potentially looking at that Donbass region?
Well, it's still difficult to, understand whether those were like also some sort of wise moves and, an attempt to buy time by the Ukrainian side, or whether, it was really like a serious proposal, because I think Ukrainian delegation, Ukrainian officials are also aware that, any kinds of agreements with Russia, they actually cannot be trusted. So they're trying to secure some sort of guarantees from other countries for Ukraine's security. But I don't know whether, it's actually viable for Ukraine to receive this sort of guarantees if it stays out of NATO. Well, NATO is the only alliance willing to give this sort of guarantees. So, there are a lot of doubts among Ukrainians, and, from people I speak with, I can see that a lot of distrust into this sort of agreements that could be made, and disbelief that Russia will observe any sort of agreements if there is no clear Ukrainian victory on the ground.
Yeah. How is morale? This invasion has lasted longer than expected. Certainly from the Russian point of view, they thought they would have possibly achieved far more in this initial phase. How are Ukrainians holding up? Obviously, we see you day by day trying to keep life going in some form. But do you feel that you do have the resources you need to keep repelling these Russian attacks?
Well, Ukrainians have no choice but to continue repelling these attacks, also because we are watching what is already happening in the territories that have been captured by Russia temporarily in southern Ukraine, for example, in Kherson, in Melitopol, in Berdyansk, the kidnappings of local activists, politicians, religious leaders, journalists. And this is a part of Russia's playbook, what Russia has been doing since 2014 in the occupied Crimea and in the occupied Donbass. And Ukraine knows Ukrainians know that if Russia manages to take more territory, they will do the same. So even if there is, if there are no like active hostilities or fighting with the use of the army, Ukrainian citizens will not be safe anyway. So there is no other choice but continue the resistance and actually, of course, hope and pressure the governments of the partner countries to provide Ukraine with more weapons, with more support, and to sanction Russia more.
Yeah. We are just, it is a remarkable thing to witness, and we all do feel for you. Olga, appreciate you taking time to talk to us.
Thank you.